Our scripture this morning comes from John 1, 43 through 51. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly, I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." May the Lord add a blessing to the hearing of his word.
Thank you, Chris. I gotta tell you, I love that gospel story so much. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But first, I have a little quiz for you. Okay, what might these things have in common? Dr. Seuss, Mr. Rogers, J.R.R. Tolkien, the Peanuts, the comic strip, not the legume, and the Sopranos. Media, okay, they're all some sort of media, sure. I'm sure there's some other creative answers you could come up with, but one thing I know that they have in common is that they've all filled in the blank of a book called The Gospel According to. You can find the Gospel According to Peanuts, you can find the Gospel According to J.R.R. Tolkien, you can find the Gospel According to Sopranos. I can't say that I've read that one, but they are. In fact, if you do a Google or even an Amazon search for Gospel According to, have over 10,000 results. This is a common, it seems, common refrain, a common way to explore the world around us. Like, what is the main message, I think the idea is, of all these things that we encounter so often? Here are a few others that you'll find. Maybe. The Gospel According to The Simpsons, the Gospel According to Shakespeare, Harry Potter, Disney, Star Wars, Hunger Games, the Gospel According to Satan, and of course, Ted Lasso. Melissa told me this week she's never heard of Ted Lasso, so let me tell you, if that's you, do yourselves a favor and find that show. It's the most heartwarming thing that I've seen in decades. It's really great, and also really, really funny. But I haven't read this, so this idea, there's all kinds of ways that we've used to explore this idea of the gospel according to. You can even find gospels according to some famous biblical characters, right? There's a whole slew of them. A few of them include Job, Daniel, Eve, Jonah, and my absolute favorite, the gospel according to the other Mary. You know, if you read the end of the Gospels, at least some of them say, like, they all have different ideas of which women were at the tomb at the end of Jesus' life, and at least one of them includes just somebody that's named the other Mary. Can you imagine if that's your legacy? Who are you? You're Mary. Whoa, you know, Jesus' what? Jesus' mother Mary? No, the other Mary. And yet, there it is. So, you can, as I said, over 10,000 of these, a few other creative ones that I think are interesting. Can't say I've explored these necessarily, but you can find the Gospel According to Coco Chanel, Gospel According to Waffle House, Yardwork, Starbucks. I assume the Gospel According to Starbucks is everybody's welcome unless you say espresso instead of espresso, in which case, you know, it's just weeping and gnashing of teeth for you. And of course, the Gospel According to, ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles. Right? all kinds of things available. Because we want to interact. We want to understand the culture around us. And the things that interest us, we try to distill to that, perhaps that ultimate message that they have. So let's think for a second about this story that we've received in the Gospel according to John. It's the only one that gives us this story, this interaction between Philip and Nathanael. I love it so much because it's just so real. A few things that stand out for me this week. One, Jesus' followers didn't gather by accident or by magic, or just the snap of a fingers. There's no infinity gauntlet here where you just snap your fingers and all of a sudden followers appear. No, it happened because one person had an encounter with Jesus and it moved them, and so they went back to their circle of influence and told their friends. And that happened over and over and over again, and that's the only reason, really, that you and I are here today, because someone told someone else about the encounter, the meaningful encounter they had with Jesus. And they said to their friend, hey, you should check this out. And I love, too, this just feels so much like me, right? Did you catch what Nathanael's response was? Because essentially his response was, yeah, right. No, really. We mean it this time. We found the Messiah. We found the one. We found the way to be in the world that's going to help us be the people we're called to be. And Nathanael says, yeah, right. Especially because Philip shares where he's from. Oh, it's Jesus of Nazareth. What good can come from Nazareth? Be honest now, have you ever been traveling somewhere, maybe in the Chicagoland area, and people ask you where you're from, and you say Minooka, and they say, huh? Some version of, can anything good come from Minooka? We understand where Nathanael's coming from, because most of us were pretty naturally skeptical. And that is an important way we can be. It can serve us well. But Nathanael here, he says, yeah, right. What possible good could come from that place? And I love, too, Philip's response. How does Philip respond? Come and see. Doesn't go into a long diatribe about, here, let me defend Jesus, let me defend my need to follow him, let me defend what could possibly be good about Nazareth. No, he just says, come and see. Experience it with me. He invites him and says, I've had this experience, I think you will too. Come and see. Doesn't insist on his way, he just says, why don't you find out? Experience it for yourself. There's so much for us to learn from this short little episode in the Gospel according to John. Willing to allow their actual experiences in their actual lives to determine how they follow Jesus. They learn from each other. They learn from the world around them. And Jesus, when Jesus encounters him, I love that Jesus is just a little bit snarky with him. I think that's pretty great too. And again, he essentially says, come and see. Stick with me and you'll see. You'll experience life in ways you never thought possible. But you have to live in the real world in order to do that. And too often the witness of American Christianity has been, remove yourself from the world. Don't care about anything or anybody outside of the people in this room. And that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't jive with the message we get from the Gospel according to John or Matthew or Mark or Luke for that matter. The world around us helps us know who we are, helps us express our emotions. I think that's, again, a piece of why you can find more than 10,000 versions of the Gospel according to, including some crazy ones. Now, maybe 60-some years ago, there was kind of a monoculture around that everybody loved the Beatles. Now, I'm not really sure that's true. It doesn't take a whole lot of internet sleuthing to find that, for instance, most African Americans in the time of the Beatles weren't as engaged by them. It was maybe monoculture in white America, but maybe not so much in other parts. And yet, And since then, certainly not. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as any one artist or movie or show or music, even genre, that I could name and we would all have had an experience of. And that's okay. It just means that, whatever we're talking about in this series, you might not have direct connection to, and that's okay. But I thought we would start with Taylor Swift. Now, I'll admit I am not a Swiftie, but my wife and daughter are, and I've spent the week learning from them and from other folks in our found family that are. I've listened to more Taylor Swift songs in the last week than I'd had in a couple of years at least, since it was the only thing my daughter would play in the car, since she started driving for herself. I don't get that experience anymore. So you may have no connection to her whatsoever, and that's okay. But in good church fashion, we're going to talk about the Eras Tour, which, the way church often does, it is a thing that, we're going to talk about it like it's super current, although it began 3 years ago. Which doesn't sound like that long ago, but it's long enough ago that I wasn't yet your pastor when the Eras Tour started. But from March of 23 and through December of 24, Taylor Swift put on 149 concerts in 51 cities across 21 countries and 5 continents. Each one of those concerts was over 3 hours long. She performed something like 45 songs each and every time. And while that may have somehow never touched your life, 51 million people attended those concerts. And it raised over $2 billion. So it's definitely been a thing. And the way she organized it, every album of hers became an era in the concert, and it was a whole deal. I'm not sure who took this picture, but they shared it on a Creative Commons sort of no licensing required space, so that's why I feel okay sharing it. I would love to play some of her music. I really would. However, because we live stream, we really can't. We can't afford that licensing deal. Okay? And I know that there are plenty of churches that don't seem to care about that kind of stuff, but I believe that part of how we love our neighbors as ourselves is that we do our best not to make unauthorized use of somebody else's intellectual property. So I won't be playing any music for you, but kind of setting that stage, setting that scene, that this is an era this was a concert that moved so many folks. And when you listen to her music, you hear so much about the joy and the heartbreak of relationships. You hear so much about standing up to those who've hurt you. You hear so much about feeling like you have to earn somebody's love, feeling like you're never enough. You listen to her music and you hear messages like it's about struggling and trying your best, and when you fall down, you get up again and start again. In her music, the gospel according to Taylor Swift, I think at least in part, it's about accepting yourself as you are, even as you're striving to be the best you can be. And sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes it's just about letting go and dancing. There's joy to be had in music of all kinds. So I asked some of the Swifties in my life to share some of their favorite songs. And perhaps one lyric from the song Marjorie stayed with me more than the rest. That goes like this: what died didn't stay dead. You're alive in my head. What died didn't stay dead. We all have those in our lives whom we've loved and lost, those from whom we've learned some lessons, but also, isn't that essentially the message at the end of each of our Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? Yes, Jesus has died, but he didn't stay dead. And at the very least, Jesus is alive because, as the song goes, he lives. You ask me how I know he lives? He lives where? Within my heart. You died, but you didn't stay dead. Now, also part of the Gospel According to the Eras tour for Taylor Swift is to give back to the community, to share some of her resources with those in need. And her public relations team declined to comment about her food bank donations, but some of those food banks that received donations were happy to tell you about it. One said that they received enough donations to buy, one food bank, to buy 75,000 meals. Some of the other recipients included food banks in Arizona, California, Colorado, Minnesota, Nevada, and Washington. Doesn't mean everything she's done is good. I'm not saying she's the greatest thing ever. Don't be silly about that. I'm just saying that the culture around us has stuff to teach us if we have eyes to see and ears to hear. And let's be honest, even the most dedicated of you and me, we're here, one, maybe if you're in a small group, maybe 2 hours a week? Yet how many hours a week are we spent surrounded by music and movie and books and all the things that invade our space, that we give our time to? Like they're speaking to us. Let's begin to cultivate the ability to read and hear and see the messages inherent in those songs and books and movies and TV, all that culture that we ingest. So that's another piece of why we might do this today. Can anything good come from the Eras Tour? Well, I seem to think so. But I'm back to that question. Can anything good come from Minooka? And I would say come and see. Can anything good come from the Minooka United Methodist Church? Come and see. So friends, with tons of help this week from our office manager, Melissa, I offer you the Minooka United Methodist Church 2025 Eras Tour. We begin I forgot. You got to switch the thing, right? Sorry. Technical, please hold while we make the technology work. Welcome in this place. You're invited to come and know God's grace. That doesn't look like the beginning of the thing. We've got our Eras Tour there somewhere. I promise it's going to be awesome when we get there. While she's finding that, let's talk a little bit more about that Gospel of John. I can't say enough about how important it is for Philip to go and talk to Nathanael, for Nathanael to hear that message from him. You know, we've talked about the 5 discipleship commitments that we've made to you, and what are they? They're praying and gathering and serving and inviting and giving, right? And that inviting only happens when you talk to the people in your life, right? And that's probably the scariest one we have. And yet we have this great example from Philip and Nathanael that just is simple invitation. It's just a simple, come with me. It's as simple as, I've experienced this thing, and I want you to. I've experienced this moment with Jesus that's opened my eyes, that's helped me feel and see the world differently, and I want that for you too. So come and try that out with me. And I know for some of our neighbors, oh, there we go, awesome, thank you. Very good, very good. So we begin, friends, with our serving era. Now, like life, all of these eras are intersectional. Like you could make a case for any of the photos being in any of the eras, and so it's not all cut and dry. It's intersectional because life is intersectional. In our serving area, when we think about the ways that we serve, of course, first and foremost comes to mind our ASP, our annual youth mission trip with the Appalachian Service Project, caring for neighbors in Appalachia that are in great need. And we had a great crew. They had to prep a little bit, and we had work crews that did amazing work. We heard all about that back in June. It's so great. You can Talk to Marlon. He'd be happy to tell you all about it for the rest of the day. And one of the great moments is that day after the trip when we hear from our participants and they share some of what they learned as they served Jesus by serving neighbors in need. We have a great group, a small group that serves at Daybreak. That's the shelter in Joliet that provides food and housing for our neighbors experiencing homelessness. And we have a wonderful crew. Oh. Frank, friends, at prayer team this week, we talked to Frank. He's feeling stronger. He's looking forward to the day when he can walk back in here. We're so grateful for that. Yeah. And if you were here a few weeks back when we did the wave thing to him, he said he saw it. So thank you for being part of that. We served at Daybreak. We're sharing a meal and safe space for our neighbors in need. What else? Our youth have been a great example of how we serve. On Martin Luther King Day last year, they did this service project where they made quilts. A couple weeks later, they gathered to make Valentines for homeless. Sometime after that, they were making birthday boxes for our Helping Hands. You know, one of the things we've learned through our client families at Helping Hands Food Pantry is that some of them have never had a birthday party. And when we create this box of things that you need to make a birthday cake and have a little bit of a party, it makes a huge difference, and our youth have often been helpful in making that. Now, there could, of course, always be more to be said about that, but then we think about our collaborating era. One of the things that we do is that we do not exist by ourselves. The United Methodist Church is a connectional church, that we do not exist as an island here, but we are connected to every other United Methodist Church, not just in our district, not just in our conference, but around the world. And some of our big memories, some of our fun times were when we were with the other churches in our area. So, for instance, this summer, our outdoor worship with Shanahan UMC and Resurrection Lutheran Church and Platteville Lutheran Church. And what a great time that was, even though it was really super hot. And Pastor Ben was the only smart one wearing shorts. It was also a wonderful day to say, it was bittersweet to say goodbye to Pastor Doe. It was our final time with him as he was reassigned. And now, of course, we've met Pastor Isla and have still good connections there, too. What else? Oh my gosh, VBS. Who doesn't love VBS when we gather with our friends from Shanahan and make a joyful noise to the Lord? We do some experiments that sometimes go awry and people get wet, and that's okay. But we have a great time dancing and singing and learning about Jesus. And so many wonderful volunteers. Our youth, again, continue to lead us, sharing in time with the youth from Shanahan, distributing a whole semi-truckload full of food to 56 different families that came and stood in line in their cars to get carloads full of frozen and fresh food. What else? Our youth also with Shanahan served at a place called Feed My Starving Children. If you've never been there, I encourage you to go. It's an amazing time. It's a great way to put together some food packs that go to malnourished children all over the globe. So we had a great group that served there, and you get to wear these fun, stylish hairnets. Like, who wouldn't want to be part of that? Our gathering era. It's one of our commitments. It's what we do. It's why we are here, because we know that we need each other, and we just enjoy the company of one another, that we're better together. How about 4 generations of the family right there in that one picture? Pretty amazing, that kind of connection that can happen in this place. We're so grateful for all the ways that we, when we gather and we sing and we pray and we're with one another, we teach, we get our Sunday school. We gather midweek. It's not always on Sundays. Sometimes we have fellowship that gathers with the week. We pray when we're together. How about our music ministry? We're so grateful for Jill, who leads us, and all of our singers that make music happen with us. It's such a huge piece of who we are and what we do in this place, and music so often connects us to one another. And perhaps more than anything, when in our our gathering era, we care for one another. We could go on and on about that. What else? How about in our experimenting era? A couple of years ago, our bishop said, the way forward, especially for churches our size, is to experiment. There's not just one way to live the way of Jesus in the world. We must be willing to experiment, and so we have. Just a few examples. this past year was our Easter egg hunt, where we had about 300 people in this space at our various booths, learning and playing and having a great time. And then there was hardly room for all of them. We didn't have anywhere near enough eggs. We've got for all the kids that came, it was an amazing and good problem to have, except for the ones that didn't get enough eggs. But something we learned from all experiments, you learn from them, right? They don't always go, it's an experiment. It doesn't always go the way you expect, and so you learn from it, and we keep going from there. In this past year, we experimented with a couple other ways to move. Movement is medicine, friends. And so we had a group for chair yoga and line dancing. And, we don't always have the best pictures. Like, this makes it look like it's a tiny, sad group, but there were like a dozen people there that day. We don't always have the best picture. That's how it goes. We experimented with a prayer walk this past spring. Prayer walk for peace, as we walked around the neighborhood, stopping a few times to pray. Marlon had to eat his shoe. There's a whole story there. You'd be happy to tell you about it later. But we would pause and pray for our neighbors and for the world. Sometimes you just got to have a good time. It's okay to enjoy. Like, one of the formative things for me was, do you remember the movie The Name of the Rose? Maybe you read the book. There's a priest in that says that's concerned that if people learn to laugh, they'll learn to laugh at God, and so he's trying to destroy anything that might be funny. I think that's a horrible idea, right? Like, we have to be willing to laugh and enjoy one another. And as an anecdote, in some days, to all the awfulness that surrounds us so very often. So some of what we do is just nourishing joy of being with others. And I think it is an amazing statement of the kind of place that we have, the kind of community that you all have created here, that the preacher for that day can show up in her pajamas, and not only does nobody blink an eye, you all just roll with it and think, well, yeah, of course. Amazing. I love it. It's wonderful. How else do we have some fun? How else do we nourish joy in this place? Well, our youth went bowling, and they had a good time. Well, we eat. Oh my gosh, United Methodists, we eat. It's what we're known for, is potlucks, and so sometimes we're nourishing our bodies as we're nourishing that joy. And we had that Roots and Branches potluck, the one where we celebrated our octogenarians and nonagenarians, folks that have been pillars here for a long, long time, our Roots and Branches, folks that we're so lucky to have learned from, folks that have said, essentially, over these decades, come and see what good can happen at Minooka UMC. Right? And so we share some food together, we share some time together, and we play a little bit. We had a wonderful, fun trivia game. I don't remember who won. Everybody must have won then. Like, that's how it goes, right? We had a great time. How was your joy? You guys are wonderful at caring for me and expressing care. I really appreciate the way that happens. And sometimes you just have a game night. Get on the floor and play. Friends, we had a nourishing joy era in 2025. Oh, that's not done. Okay, so, because we're going to eat some more. Always with the eating and the gathering and the eating and the eating and the eating. Oh yeah, let's have some fun. May 4th this year, in 2025, was a Sunday. And of course, for the uninitiated, May 4th is Star Wars Day, because May the 4th be with you. Thank you very much for the quip there. Right? And so we use a little AI fun to create Star Wars characters out of some of our people, because we just like to nourish joy like that. Love God with your whole selves, love your neighbors as yourselves. One of our most important areas was the way we create community around us. And one of the best ways we do that is with our senior lunch. Every month, 150 or so people gather for a lunch, and they keep coming back. I think not just because the food is so good, but because of the community that happens there. People show up an hour before the doors are supposed to open and stay longer after. Why? Not because they get like extra appetizer or something, but because they want the time together, because we know our world is experiencing a loneliness epidemic and we need one another. And one of the great powers of the senior lunch is the community it offers and creates there. Folks that enjoy time together. The one bad part about the senior lunch is most weeks, most months, you have to listen to me talk for a few minutes before you get to eat. You can see Glenn there. He's like, oh, when are we going to eat? Anyway. But of course, the senior lunch doesn't happen without amazing volunteers and cooks. So thank you to all those that make that ministry happen. But what else? One of the great successes of 2025 is the community we've created on Wednesday nights with our youth group. And it's not all fun and games. This past fall, when a local high school student died by suicide, we didn't ignore it. We didn't pretend it didn't happen. We gathered and we said we're going to face it head on. So we gathered that day and we brought in some experts. We brought in the family member who lived through someone in their family that died by suicide, and we brought in a mental health professional, and we had meaningful conversation, and we told every one of those kids that they belong, that they're loved, that they matter. So thank you to Val and Michelle for being part of that night, creating a community that tells kids they're important and that they're loved. If we did nothing else all year long, I'd be satisfied with that. Creating community is a huge piece of who we are and what we do. It's why our small groups exist, to have a place to care for one another and be cared for by one another. And one of our other experiments this year was having a booth at the Joliet Pride Fest where we had wonderful conversations with all kinds of our neighbors. It was an amazing, amazing day. And we had a wonderful time on Maundy, Thursday. We'll be honest, we're not quite ready to experiment with washing feet, but washing hands, we're okay with that. A way of expressing care, a way of making community alive in who we are. And sometimes things just don't fit. And so we had a miscellaneous era too. And whether that's children waving palms on Palm Sunday or a soup supper on Maundy, Thursday, trying to different ways that we might gather. And we had wonderful donors that made our electric sign happen, that people are coming in. We have one of the neighborhood kids coming to youth group because they saw it on the sign. Like it's making a difference, so thank you for that. In the fall, we welcomed new members. It was an amazing day when we get to say that there are new people who are saying, hey, come and see what's happening at Minooka UMC. And of course, as amazing as the sanctuary looks at Christmas time, it doesn't happen by magic either, but because a whole bunch of people spend a whole lot of time making it look incredible. Whee! I love that one. That's so much fun. And that's the result. Again, we recognize the holiday season isn't all cheer and jolly joy for some folks. So the longest night exists as a place to gather and be honest about what we're feeling. And sometimes just sitting in the glow of those lights is as healing as anything we ever say or pray. We experimented too with the pop-up pageant that went really well because the people that were here got into it. It could have been a disaster, but people got into it. And my friends, more than anything, in this place, I see us being fearless. We know that there are all kinds of forces in our country and in our world that want us to be afraid and want us to act out of fear in ways that harm one another and ourselves. And in this place, as we said, all Advent and Christmas and Epiphany long, being fearless doesn't mean that we aren't afraid. It means we don't let whatever our fears are stop us. We don't let those fears freeze us or get us to run away. No, we work through them, that we continue to be the hands and feet, the caring presence of Jesus in the world through our fears, in spite of our fears. And whatever happens in the coming weeks and months and years, we will continue to be fearless in that way. Amen? Amen. Now, friends, I'm not done yet. because I think that fearlessness leads us into what is perhaps our most important era, and that's our caring for neighbors era. And how do we do that? In so very many ways, especially through our Helping Hands Food Pantry. Again, our youth. And friends, the folks that gather, the kids that gather on Wednesday nights for youth group here, most of them, something like 70% of them, are not already directly connected to this congregation. And yet, over and over again, you see them being part of the serving here at the Helping Hands early in the year, sorting food. All kinds of ways that they were helping make that happen. Caring for our neighbors is a huge piece of who we are. And nothing says that to me more than the way at Christmas we provide presents for the children of the client families of Helping Hands. Now, you've heard me say over and over and over again, a year ago December, Helping Hands was serving 48 families. They're currently serving 65 families because as the need has grown, our response to that need has grown as well. And so we started off with trees full of tags, each one expressing a child's Christmas wish. Oh, once again, youth leading the way, our confirmation group shopping for some of those gifts. And it takes a whole team to organize those gifts. Once you all brought them all in, and so many of you were part of that, maybe you shopped for a gift, maybe you gave a financial gift so that somebody else could provide a gift, maybe you were part of the team that wrapped them and organized them and kept them separate and kept them organized so that every one of the 66 children that are part of the client families at the Helping Hands Pantry, every single tag that was on that tree was taken care of. And it takes dedication. I'm told we should be glad that there's not a video of whatever conversation was happening in this thing right here, and yet they work together to make it happen, bringing holiday cheer. Perhaps nothing expresses our care for our neighbors more than those empty angel trees, signifying that every single one of the 66 children got all of the presents that they asked for because of the way that you respond to the love of Jesus in your life and share that love with others. That, my friends, is who we are and why we gather and what we do to be in our caring for neighbors era. Amen?